Hi, I thank you so much to Gatsby Days for letting me participate in this. It's super awesome, and thank you for joining me today. So I'm Derek. This is me. This is where you can find me on the internet. I apologize in advance for my tweets. They're bad tweets. I am a front-end developer based here in Toronto, Canada. And I also do some mentoring and a little instruction and the occasional workshop on the side, but this is my first talk, so I am super excited. Um, I'm also still a pretty junior developer. I was a graphic designer for over a decade, and early last year I decided to change careers, and I took some night classes, and then I took a front-end development boot camp, and I've been a developer for a bit less than a year now. And I'd like to talk today about my very first full-time developer gig, which was working with Gatsby. I joined a small team who were building a new website for Juno College of Technology here in Toronto. This website right here. It's at junocollege.com. It's a Gatsby site. Feel free to check it out. It's a cool site. We're super proud of it. And, it's not a regular school, it's a cool school. And yeah, I was thrilled to get this gig. If you think the job of a junior developer is to learn stuff, then what better place to do that than to work at a school, right? So, cut to day one on the job. The project lead tells me that we are going to be developing this site using Gatsby. And my reaction is, great, what's a Gatsby? Followed in short order by what's a static site generator and why do you want to use a static site, etc., etc. You get the picture. The thing with starting out as a new developer is that the amount of stuff out there that there is to learn can be really overwhelming. Like there's a ton. And yeah, like you first start learning and you're like, okay, HTML, CSS, I got this. Web development, no big deal, because you don't know what you don't know. But then eventually you realize just how much other stuff is out there and you're like, where do I even start? It's exciting, but it's a lot, and it can induce a kind of choice paralysis because you don't know where you want to go, especially when you like start thinking about like, well, what's in demand right now? Like, what's going to help my career? What's going to help future-proof me? Where do I even go? There's like a whole universe of stuff out there, and it can feel huge and unapproachable. Where do you even begin? If you're like me, you maybe need something that'll help you get you started, that'll get you a little bit closer to that universe of stuff and start you off on a good foot. Um, this kind of brings me to the first thing that I wanted to mention about what I liked about working with Gatsby as a new developer. A Gatsby project is a good start. It comes with structure, for one thing, and that structure helps narrow down the range of things that you're worried about. It makes that huge universe of stuff less overwhelming. Like you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of time thinking about tooling or configuring things or whatever. You type Gatsby new into the terminal and you've got a file structure that you can work with and you've got a thing that already works that you can start building on and just like go from there. And it's a good jumping off point. So you can just concentrate on building, which is the fun part, right? And it helps you narrow down the choice of tools and technologies that you're going to learn about in a way. In the context of this Juno College project, for instance, that meant me saying to myself, okay, I'm going to focus on getting good at component-driven development with React, and I'm going to learn about GraphQL because that's what Gatsby uses for its data layer. Excuse me, and I'm going to learn how to work with a headless CMS because that's where we're keeping our content. Plus, the stuff you get to learn working with a Gatsby project just happens to be stuff that's in demand right now, so that's a nice bonus. I said in passing that it's maybe the job of a junior developer to learn stuff, but that applies to all of us, not just juniors. Like, as developers, we have to know how to do things, right? How to make an accessible form, how to work with an API we've never encountered, whatever it is. But that universe of stuff is too big, and no one person can possibly learn all of that, which means all of us have to learn things on the fly throughout our whole career, which means that when you're starting out, it's important to learn how to learn things. Learning is a skill like any other. And a really good bit of advice that I got on this was don't focus so much on what particular technology or what particular tool you think you should learn next. Just focus on building projects. And whatever you need to learn to build the project at hand, learn that. And you will expand your knowledge organically that way. For me, thinking of it that way really helped cut down on that decision paralysis of like, what do I do next? Where do I go next? And working inside the structure of a Gatsby project meshed really well with that mindset. So back to my first job story. I have just learned what a Gatsby is, and now I have to learn how it works, which brings us to number 2. I love good documentation, and Gatsby's is great. It's very welcoming, which is refreshing, unfortunately. A lot of the tech world can be fairly gatekeepy, whether deliberately or just passively through omission. Like, you've probably encountered documentation that is really frustratingly vague because it assumes a ton of foreknowledge, like, oh, just install this dependency through your favorite, package manager, and then just type dash dash man and you'll see what to do. And you're like, what? What's a type where? What's a yarn? You're just saying words. It doesn't have to be like that. It shouldn't be like that. If we want the world of tech to be more inclusive, then it needs to be welcoming. And a small part of that is good documentation. And good documentation meets people where they are and brings them to where we want them to be. And Gatsby's docs do that, which is really nice. As an aside, if you want to contribute to an open source project and maybe you're nervous about contributing code, consider seeing if a project needs help with their documentation. It's a great way to contribute. Anyway, so I spent a few days reading docs and doing tutorials, and before my first week on the job was done, I was already contributing code. For a junior dev, fresh out of boot camp, working with the technology they've only just heard of, that's pretty quick. This is not because I am smart. Between you and me, I'm really not. But the basics of working with Gatsby are pretty straightforward. Especially if you are already comfortable with React, you can do the Hello World tutorial and you can have a functional blog in a couple of hours. Like, that's pretty quick. Which brings us to number 3, quick wins and rapid progress. Like, you can build a really good website really quickly with Gatsby. In the context of this first project with Juneau College, it meant that I could make solid contributions to the team really quickly, and that felt really great. It felt like I was pulling my weight, right? But more broadly, like when you're learning, and it doesn't matter if you're a junior or a senior, when you're learning, it is so important to feel like you're making tangible progress, right? It's a huge morale boost, and it gives you momentum. It makes you want to learn more and build more, and you want to take the next step and the next. The next step for me, segue, was working with data, which meant learning GraphQL. And I had worked with RESTful APIs before, but I had never touched GraphQL. You guessed it, this is number 4. Working within a Gatsby project made for a really great introduction to GraphQL. This comes back to the ease of getting started with Gatsby, right? You type Gatsby new in the terminal, and you've got a working thing already, and you can just start making queries. You can get your feet wet with GraphQL without having to find an open API that's ready to work with, or even crazier, spinning up your own Apollo server and client installation and figuring out all of that. You can just jump in and start playing with it. That's huge. And this isn't Gatsby specific, but the Graphical Explorer is a great tool, but it's actually a really great learning tool. Like being able to visually explore a schema and click around, just to click and build a query and see how it works, that's a great learning tool. Developing in Gatsby is a really nice gentle introduction to the technology, and you get to see how powerful GraphQL is really quickly without first having to spend a lot of time banging your head against a wall trying to get set up with it. You can just start playing with it, which is pretty sweet. The fifth and last thing I'm going to call out was how nice deployment was, especially if you're deploying to something like Netlify. After I wrapped up my part of the Juno College project, I decided to use the same stack to rebuild my personal site. So Gatsby and Netlify and Contentful in this case. And because I knew by this point I could build something pretty good pretty quickly. I was looking for work. I didn't want to waste a lot of time, right? Get that portfolio up there. So I designed and built my site in about a week and a half. And when it came time to deploy, I just ran Gatsby build and drag and dropped a folder. Like, it took a couple minutes. That combination of rapid development and super easy deployment is really powerful, especially for self-guided learning or experimentation. Like, you can just try a thing, throw it up on the internet, see if it works. It's great. It kind of feels like a magic trick. It's a lot of fun to work with. So yeah, that was, in a nutshell, my experience of working with Gatsby as a junior. I've deliberately kept this non-technical, like super non-technical. There are lots of other super smart people talking at Gatsby Days, and I'll leave the technical stuff to them. Like, they're smart, they have way more experience than I do, but I'll get there. Like, after working with Gatsby on a couple of projects now, I have a good sense of the mechanics of it, and now I'm in a really good place where I can fill in the gaps in my knowledge and go further and extend my learning in new directions, right? Now I can do X, so now I can figure out how to do Y. Or I know how to do Z, so now I can dig under the hood and find out why exactly it works the way it does. It's a really good jumping off point. And that big universe of things to learn is now a lot more approachable than it used to seem. So yeah, that is me. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of the talks. I know I am really looking forward to them. So thanks.